In the morning when thou findest thyself unwilling to rise, consider with thyself presently, it is to go about a man's work that I am stirred up. Am I then yet unwilling to go about that, for which I myself is born, and brought forth into this world? Or was I made for this, to lay me down, and make much of myself in a warm bed? Oh, but this is pleasing. And was it then for this that thou wert born, that thou mightest enjoy pleasure? Was it not in very truth for this, that thou mightest always be busy and in action? Seest thou not how all things in the world besides, how every tree and plant, how sparrows and ants, spiders and bees, how all in their kind are intent as it were orderly, to perform whatsoever towards the preservation of this orderly universe naturally doth become and belong unto thin? And wilt not thou do that which belongs unto a man to do? Wilt not thou run to do that which thy nature doth require? But thou must have some rest. Yes, thou must. Nature hath of that also, as well as of eating and drinking, allowed thee a certain stench. But thou gest beyond thy stench, and beyond that which would suffice, and in matter of action, there thou comest short of that which thou mayest. It must needs be therefore that thou dost not love thyself, for if thou didst, thou wouldst also love thy nature, and that which thy nature doth propose unto herself as her end. Others, as many as take pleasure in their trade and profession, can even pine themselves at their works, and neglect their bodies and their food for it. And dost thou less honor thy nature than an ordinary mechanic his trade, or a good dancer his art, than a covetous man his silver, and vainglorious man applause? These, to whatsoever they take an affection, can be content to want their meat and sleep, to further that every one which he affects, and shall actions tending to the common good of human society seem more vile unto thee, or worthy of less respect and intention. How easy a thing is it for a man to put off from him all turbulent adventitious imaginations, and presently to be in perfect rest and tranquility. Think thyself fit and worthy to speak, or to do anything that is according to nature, and let not the reproach or report of some that may ensue upon it ever deter thee. If it be right and honest to be spoken or done, undervalue not thyself so much as to be discouraged from it. As for them, they have their own rational overruling part, and their own proper inclination, which thou must not stand and look about to take notice of, but go on straight, whither both thine own particular and the common nature do lead thee. And the way of both these is but one. I continue my course by actions according to nature, until I fall and cease, breathing out my last breath into that air, by which continually breathed in, I did live, and falling upon that earth, out of whose gifts and fruits my father gathered his seed, my mother her blood, and my nurse her milk, out of which for so many years I have been provided, both of meat and drink, and lastly, which beareth me that tread upon it, and beareth with me that so many ways do abuse it, or so freely make use of it, so many ways to so many ends. No man can admire thee for thy sharp acute language. Such is thy natural disability that way. Be it so, yet there be many other good things, for the want of which thou canst not plead the want or natural ability. Let them be seen in thee, which depend wholly from thee: sincerity, gravity, laboriousness, contempt of pleasures. Be not querulous, be content with little, be kind, be free. Avoid all superfluity, all vain prattling. Be magnanimous. Dost not thou perceive how many things there be, which notwithstanding any pretense of natural indisposition and unfitness, thou mightest have performed and exhibited, and yet still thou doest voluntarily continue drooping downwards? Or wilt thou say that it is through defect of thy natural constitution that thou art constrained to murmur, to be base and wretched, to flatter, now to accuse, and now to please, and pacify thy body, to be vainglorious, to be so giddy-headed and unsettled in thy thoughts? Nay, witnesses be the gods of all these, thou mightest have been rid long ago. Only this thou must have been contented with, to have borne the blame of one that is somewhat slow and dull, wherein thou must so exercise thyself, as one who neither doth much take to heart this his natural defect, nor yet pleaseth himself in it. Such there be, who when they have done a good turn to any, are ready to set them on the score for it, and to require retaliation. Others there be, who though they stand not upon retaliation, to require any, yet they think with themselves nevertheless that such a one is their debtor, and they know as their word is what they have done. Others again there be, who, when they have done any such thing, do not so much as know what they have done, but are like unto the vine, which beareth her grapes, and when once she hath borne her own proper fruit, is contented, and seeks for no further recompense, as a horse after a race, and a hunting dog when he hath hunted. And a bee, when she hath made her honey, look not for applause and commendation. So neither doth that man that rightly doth understand his own nature when he hath done a good turn, but from one doth proceed to do another. Even as the vine after she hath once borne fruit in her own proper season, is ready for another time. Thou therefore must be one of them, who what they do, barely do it without any further thought, and are in a manner insensible of what they do. Nay, but, will some reply perchance, this very thing a rational man is bound unto, to understand what it is that he doeth. For it is the property, say they, of one that is naturally sociable to be sensible, that he doth operate sociably. Nay, and to desire that the party himself that is sociably dealt with should be sensible of it too. I answer, that which thou sayest is true indeed, but the true meaning of that which is said thou dost not understand, and therefore art thou one of those first whom I mentioned. For they also are led by a probable appearance of reason. But if thou dost desire to understand truly what it is that is said, fear not that thou shalt therefore give over any sociable action. The form of the Athenians' prayer did run thus: O rain, rain, good Jupiter, upon all the grounds and fields that belong to the Athenians. Either we should not pray at all, or thus absolutely and freely, and not everyone for himself in particular alone. As we say commonly, the physician hath prescribed unto this man riding, unto another cold baths, unto a third to go barefoot. So it is alike to say, the nature of the universe hath prescribed unto this man sickness, or blindness, or some loss, or damage, or some such thing. For is there, when we say of a physician, that he hath prescribed anything, our meaning is, that he hath appointed this for that, as subordinate and conducing to health. So here, whatsoever doth happen unto any, is ordained unto him as a thing subordinate unto the fates, and therefore do we say of such things, that they dumbudabatai, that is, happen, or fall together, as of square stones, when either in walls or pyramids in a certain position, they fit one another, and agree as it were in an harmony. The masons say that they dum beta shue, as if thou shouldest say, fall together, so that in the general, though the things be diverse that make it, yet the consent or harmony itself is but one. And as the whole world is made up of all the particular bodies of the world, one perfect and complete body, of the same nature that particular bodies, so is the destiny of particular causes and events one general one, of the same nature that particular causes are. What I now say, even they that are mere idiots are not ignorant of, for they say commonly thou hata hiet, that is, this his destiny hath brought upon him. This therefore is by the fates properly, and particularly brought upon this, as that unto this in particular is by the physician prescribed. These therefore let us accept of in like manner, as we do those that are prescribed unto us our physicians. For them also in themselves shall we find to contain many harsh things, but we nevertheless, in hope of health and recovery, accept of them. Let the fulfilling and accomplishment of those things which the common nature hath determined be unto thee as thy health. Accept then, and be pleased with whatsoever doth happen, though otherwise harsh and unpleasing, as tending to that end. to the health and welfare of the universe, and to Jove's happiness and prosperity. For this, whatsoever it be, should not have been produced, had it not conduced to the good of the universe. For neither doth any ordinary particular nature bring anything to pass, that is not to whatsoever is within the sphere of its own proper administration and government agreeable and subordinate. For these two considerations, then, thou must be well pleased with anything that doth happen unto thee. First, because that for thee properly it was brought to pass, and unto thee it was prescribed, and that from the very beginning by the series and connection of the first causes, it hath ever had a reference unto thee. And secondly, because the good success and perfect welfare, and indeed the very continuance of him, that is the administrator of the whole, doth in a manner depend on it. For the whole, because whole, therefore entire and perfect, is maimed and mutilated. If thou shalt cut off anything at all, whereby the coherence and contiguity, as of parts, so of causes, is maintained and preserved, of which certain it is, that thou dost as much as lieth in thee cut off, and in some sort violently take somewhat away, as often as thou art displeased with anything that happeneth. Be not discontented, be not disheartened, be not out of hope, if often it succeed not so well with thee punctually and precisely to do all things according to the right dogmata. But being once cast off, return unto them again. And as for those many and more frequent occurrences, either of worldly distractions or human infirmities, which as a man thou canst not but in some measure be subject unto, be not thou discontented with them, but however, love and affect that only which thou dost return unto a philosopher's life, and proper occupation after the most exact manner. And when thou dost return to thy philosophy, return not unto it as the manner of some is, after play and liberty as it were, to their schoolmasters and pedagogues, but as they that have sore eyes to their sponge and egg, or as another to his cataplasm, or as others to their fomentations. So shalt not thou make it a matter of ostentation at all to obey reason, but of ease and comfort. And remember, the philosophy requireth nothing of thee, but what thy nature requireth. And wouldest thou thyself desire anything that is not according to nature? For which of these sayest thou? That which is according to nature or against it is of itself more kind and pleasing. Is it not for that respect especially, that pleasure itself is to so many men's hurt and overthrow, most prevalent, because esteemed commonly most kind and natural? But consider well, whether magnanimity rather, and true liberty, and true simplicity, and equanimity, and holiness, whether these be not most kind and natural, and prudency itself, what more kind and amiable than it, when thou shalt truly consider with thyself what it is through all the proper objects of thy rational intellectual faculty currently to go on without any fall or stumble. As for the things of the world, their true nature is in a manner so involved with obscurity, that unto many philosophers, and those no mean ones, they seemed altogether incomprehensible, and the Stoics themselves, though they judged them not altogether incomprehensible, yet scarce and not without much difficulty comprehensible, so that all assent of ours is fallible. For who is he that is infallible in his conclusions? From the nature of things, pass now unto their subjects and matter. How temporary, how vile are they! Such as may be in the power and possession of some abominable loose liver, of some common strumpet, of some notorious oppressor and extortioner. Pass from thence to the dispositions of them that thou dost ordinarily converse with. How hardly do we bear, even with the most loving and amiable, that I may not say, how hard it is for us to bear even with our own selves, in such obscurity and impurity of things, in such and so continual a flux, both of the substances and time, both of the motions themselves, and things moved, what it is that we can fasten upon, either to honor and respect especially, or seriously and studiously to seek after. I cannot so much as conceive, for indeed they are things contrary. Thou must comfort thyself in the expectation of thy natural dissolution, and in the meantime not grieve at the delay, but rest contented in those two things. First, that nothing shall happen unto thee, which is not according to the nature of the universe. Secondly, that it is in thy power to do nothing against thine own proper God and inward spirit, for it is not in any man's power to constrain thee to transgress against him. What is the use that now at this present I make of my soul? Thus from time to time, and upon all occasions, thou must put this question to thyself. What is now that part of mine which they call the ration and mistress part, employed about, whose soul do I now properly possess? A child's, or a youth's, a woman's, or a tyrant's, some brute, or some wild beast's soul? What those things are in themselves, which by the greatest part are esteemed good, thou mayest gather even from this. For if a man shall hear things mentioned as good, which are really good indeed, such as are prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, after so much heard and conceived, he cannot endure to hear of any more, for the word good is properly spoken of them. But as for those which by the vulgar are esteemed good, if he shall hear them mentioned as good, he doth hearken for more. He is well contented to hear that what is spoken by the comedian is but familiarly and popularly spoken, so that even the vulgar apprehend the difference. For why is it else that this offends not and needs not to be excused, when virtues are styled good, but that which is spoken in commendation of wealth, pleasure, or honor, we entertain it only as merrily and pleasantly spoken? Proceed therefore and inquire further, whether it may not be that those things also which being mentioned upon the stage were merrily, and with great applause of the multitude, scoffed at with this jest, that they that possessed them had not in all the world of their own. Such was their affluence and plenty, so much as a place where to avoid their excrements, whether, I say, those ought not also in very deed to be much respected, and esteemed of as the only things that are truly good.